Yang Berusaha Saudara Nixon Paul, President of MIEA, and MIEA Council members. Yang Berusaha Saudara Siva Shankar, the two-timing convention organizing chairman, two-time, not two-timing, chairman and organizing, chairman of the organizing committee of this convention, presidents of fellow institutions, NGOs, peer groups, in particular, delegates from Philippines, Indonesia, and Singapore, and distinguished guests, honorable participants, good ladies and gentlemen. Firstly, I would like to thank MIEA for inviting REHDA to share its experiences at MAREC 2012, the Malaysian Annual Real Estate Convention. I am indeed honored to be on the same platform with some of the eminent speakers later on at this convention, some of whom I've known for many years. Secondly, I must confess, as I woke up this morning, I thought to myself, why in the first instance I have sacrificed my golf slot this morning to be here? And how come when on normal days I don't normally start my appointment at 10 o'clock, I'm here at 9 a.m. Then the truth is, I think MIEA is a very important NGO that is critical to the health and success of the property industry. REHDA and I personally consider MIEA and its members important partners and a strong pillar of the real estate industry. All of you have done a tremendous job through thick and thin, rain and shine, ups and downs of the marketplace, contributing directly and indirectly, resulting in more than 140 billion worth of sales. In my note, there was 100 billion because I had the statistics for 2010. So just now, the Yang Muhammad Deputy Minister mentioned this 140 billion worth of sale. So there's a lot of transaction in the market, particularly in the secondary market. Without you, the property industry would not be thriving and contributing so positively to the nation's GDP. And imagine if you had not been able to succeed in active transactions and S&Ps of properties within the secondary market, not only at higher prices, but satisfying your clients, especially whom they're enriched by healthy capital appreciation, it would be challenging for my members in REHDA to launch new projects. So on behalf of REHDA, I'd like to thank you all for your diligence, hard work, and sacrifices. I know the canceled appointments with your family, the missed dinners with your loved ones, and the Sundays when you could have walked the shopping mall, you have to drive your car and park in some laterite road in the middle of Puchong or Nilai or somewhere, trying to do a deal. So you deserve a pat on your back, so put your hands together for yourself. Thirdly, I just realized I'm the first speaker, probably slightly easier than the one who's going to start at 2 o'clock. But halfway through, I might ask Amanda to light the dynamite because it's not the easiest to present a subject on the outlook of 2012. All of you are looking for a crystal ball, just I am too. And I could accept the tone by saying it's a terrible year and we can all go and have lunch and go home. But that wouldn't be fair for other speakers. So I'm going to speak almost as though like a weatherman. You know, it's a sunny, bright start, scattered showers through lunch, cloud setting in, northeasterly wind blowing, followed by thunderstorm, and then next morning it's sunrise and bright skies. That probably describes what the property industry is all about. It is cyclical. There is bright spots for people who work hard and find a niche. There's also the thunder, the rain, and the storm, which we all have to deal with. So we have been through some of this, 97, 98, probably 2008 also. I think what we have as a consolation and comfort is that we have enough experience to fight another day and to be better. So my presentation is going to be in slide form, and it's Market Outlook 2012, a property developer's perspective. Okay, put your hands together for Mr. Tan, who works for WTW, making sure, because I'm not a techie, just make sure, but I do know how to switch on and off. Okay, I always like to start by promoting REHDA a little bit. I know all of you know who REHDA is, but for the benefit of those young ones, younger ones, REHDA was founded in 1970. Members are only real estate developers, okay? We want to be very focused because the real estate industry, the property industry, particularly the residential industry, is a very highly legislated one. So we want to focus our attention that we deal with issues related to the real estate industry. It is indeed recognized as a leading voice of advocacy and governance of the real estate and housing industry. Members of REHDA have built more than 4 million housing units to date and contributed in excess of 20 billion ringgit. That's quite conservative annually to Malaysia's GDP. If you have heard what the minister say, I think something like 25 billion to 25 to 30% is actually loans. Total banking loan is actually to real estate. That probably corresponds with what our research shows. It does impact 140 upstream and downstream industries. So engineers, architects, lawyers, bankers, and people like yourself will be impacted by what we do at the shop end industry. Going lower down the supply chain, you also have Maggi mee noodle suppliers, Nestle, right? If the construction industry is not healthy, less Indonesian workers, less Bangladeshi workers, there'll be less Maggi mee being sold, less Milo being sold, even the karaoke lounges will also be affected. REHDA's members as at N2011, 980 corporate members. We don't have individuals, all of us are nominees of companies that are members of REHDA. And we probably employ something like 1 million people directly and indirectly, slightly smaller than the civil service. Probably higher, slightly higher productivity, I hope. That's the new REHDA headquarters. We like to make this a showcase of what the real property industry is all about. That we are healthy, we contribute, and because we contribute positively, we also make some money. And as a consequence, we wanted to build this headquarter, which is green, no gearing, we didn't go to the bank. We have a lot of seminar rooms and also even multi-purpose hall, which I hope you all will make use of, because what we intend to do is also have a library or a resource center where we can all share information and share knowledge. I know it's difficult for the younger associations and institutes to have his own resources. As I think the president say, many are called, few answer, and so it's very difficult for them to, apart from contributing their time, it's even more difficult to try and raise money. So I think instead of all of us having individual headquarters, I would probably be proposing to my council members that maybe access cards would be given for you all to go into the resource center, because I think we all are in one voice and we are all in the same platform. By way of introduction, I think all the notes are in your bag, so I'm going to skip through quite a few of these slides because it's a lot of words, okay? Property development is a business viewed as lucrative and profitable. I think that that's a perception. And every time we go to Putrajaya, we ask our government for help, give us more tax breaks and everything. And as we arrive at the Porticoche, the minister really look out of the windows. It's all chauffeur-driven Mercedes, BMWs, and even the occasional Bentley. So it's very difficult. It's almost like the directors of General Electric going to Obama and say, can you help us? And they came in private jets. But we say that's the culture of doing business in this country. If you don't come in Mercedes and BMWs, the buyers out there don't buy your property because they think you're poor. But the fact is, most of the cars are actually mortgaged to Arab Malaysian or Korean insurance. Right? This means trying to achieve, and we have to do a lot of, carry a lot of burden, public and social agenda. Again, some of the slides may bore some of you, but for those who are unenlightened, you'll be really surprised what developers have to do in order to develop units that we can sell profitably, okay? So it means that we have to achieve a balancing act of delivering a marketable product to customers within the same economic confines as any other industry, and also to strive to fulfill the social agenda imposed by the government. And when we talk about government, it's different government because different states have got different legislation, yeah, through various requirements and restrictions. The content would be the economic environment, and then the second part would be property market, the developers 6M, and then a quick run through on opportunities presented to the developers lately, and the conclusion. The economic environment, we have deliberately kept it only to 2 slides or 3 slides because the only one who can make the economic subject exciting and passionate and keep you awake is the following speaker, Dr. Ye, who's here this morning. So I'm not going to steal the thunder from him. I think latest data provided by the government is that in 2011, we closed the GDP number with 5.1%. Still very good when you consider Eurozone sovereign crisis and the numbers that are coming out from developed countries. We're projecting 4.6% economic growth. I sit on the board of Standard Chartered Bank, and Standard Chartered Economic Department in London came up with a number of 2.7%. The last board meeting, I was told that a lot of these people were hauled up by Bank Negara to explain. Thank God ISA has been reprieved. Otherwise, some of these masale could be sitting in Kamunting also. Private consumption forecast 5.2%. Investments increased to 6.7%. Obviously, some of this as a consequence of the ETP program. And inflation fairly benign at 2.6%. To hear the latest, listen to the next speaker. Consumer sentiment, KL is the 76th most livable city in the world. This is by Mercer's Quality of Living Index, but under the Economic Transformation Program and under the Greater Kuala Lumpur, Klang Valley, NKEA, the KPI is based on EIU, Economic Intelligence Unit benchmark, which I think ranks slightly lower than that. So one of the things that the committee is doing is, I think in about 2 or 3 weeks' time, is actually to engage the EIU and say, what chance have we got of moving to the top 20 by 2020? Strangely, one of the measures of livability by EIU is the temperature, which probably confirms that all the top 10 countries are in temperate countries, having temperatures, ideal temperatures of probably between 16 to 24 degrees. So we are all in the sort of 28 to 35 degrees. That's very discriminating because we can never get to the sort of temperature that you're talking about. So perhaps engaging them will ask them to look at it from a different angle. 80% household earned average of 2,500 income. 60% of household earn 6,000 ringgit per month and below. I don't really believe those numbers because, I know my driver earns much more than that, and he's got other side income too. But this is probably what is officially reported. And I'm sure a lot of estate agents too probably haven't filed in their BE forms either. Consumer sentiment, CPI increased by 3.2% in 2011, expected 2.7%. The Deputy Minister of Finance just mentioned, I think there's some headwinds in terms of approval of loan application. July to December, the second half of last year, only about 50% loan application for housing were approved. And as announced, 1st January 2012, banks are now required to base mortgages on net income. One of the problems with banks right now is administrative, because normally they have a little template, fills in the number and comes up with your affordability. Now they have to feed into the computer things like EPF, your car loan, the interest you pay to the Along, presumably, the occasional trip to Genting, or how are they going to come up with those numbers? Whereas in the past, it is both quantitative, in other words, you fill in the form, gross income, less whatever it is, and come up with that. It is also qualitative, because that's why you have relationship managers for, to understand where all your side incomes come from, whether your wife is working, whether you get dividends from shares, right, or inheritance from parents. Those sometimes don't appear in income tax form. So I think banks would need to again engage Bank Negara and come up with something, maybe a hybrid. I'll skip this. Residential supply growth is dropping, and that's somewhat worrying. I think maybe if you just look at Kuala Lumpur and Klang Valley, you have the brown one, which is Kuala Lumpur. Slight uptick in 2010. It was dropping from 2008 to 2009 as an after effect of the global financial crisis. I still remember this quite clearly. GFC happened second half of 2008. There was almost very little sales going on. 2009, people begin to be less worried because they suddenly realize there's some decoupling between what's happened in the US and in Malaysia. And then 2010 is when everyone says, hang on, I've missed the boat for the last 2 years. I better start buying because I'm already 53 and going 55. The bank manager said, please don't see me, go and see the tea lady if you want a loan. So this probably caused that, if you like, the sudden spike in interest in property, which actually is then reflected in the sudden escalation in prices. This is the classic economic model of demand exceeding supply. And members in REHDA were far better equipped to weather this sort of crisis, if you like. In the past, you have no choice but to continue to launch, irrespective, because the banks are giving you a loan. Okay, the 97, 98, 99 crisis is over. Those less strong developers have already gone to the ground. So 13 years later, developers have got stronger balance sheet, better risk management, better professionalism. So when they realize there's less demand out there, they actually can hold back their launches. So I think that's probably two reasons why. Plus, on top of that, the third reason, banking liquidity has been very good, and the government has been very supportive. I think these 4 or 5 reasons probably just moved the market, all right? It's probably playing catching up. So the rest is history, 2010 up to even, to some extent, 2011. We all heard about prices of land going up 60%, 100% in the last 3 years. And to some extent, even condos have also spiked in prices. Although the yields are dropping, but that's obviously works in tandem. Yeah? When your yields go up and people's rental is fixed, then obviously the yield starts to soften. Gradual price increase in residential property in Klang Valley for the past 9 years. This is an average price snapshot. Semi-Ds in Kuala Lumpur is doing well and continuing to do well. I think this is probably a question I should ask you all. All of you have fingers on the pulse, so I should be asking you all. But this is what is the results obtained through research by our own REHDA Institute. Property transaction, a pie chart. The brown indicates or represents new build. So out of the total transaction in 2011, only 23% is actually are units sold by developers who develop new property. So 77% are actually purchases made through secondary market, either from companies, individuals, and so on, which actually then gave us a very convincing representation to the government to say that, in fact, build and sell is very healthy and alive. It's already there in the market. We have sell and build, which is what the new development is being sold. That's a delivery system. But governments wants build and sell. In other words, you complete your building before you sell. But what we are saying is that if you look at the numbers, 77% are buying from the second market. It is actually what you see is what you get. Primary market is declining. So I think our statistics shows that last 2 years, the new supply into the market has been only about 100 to 110,000 units, okay? And I think sales has been probably 50%, okay, from new. So I guess a lot of people buy from the secondary market, which means it's good news for you all, because if you buy from the new, buy new units from developers, they usually have their own sales and marketing team. The secondary market is where you all thrive and where you all make your living. So, you know, that shows you have done a tremendous job that you can even outsell developers, okay? But one thing of concern is we need to examine why is the supply declining. We think partly authority approval is still very, very difficult. There's less land bank being available now, so it's not so easy to just launch, right? Those days, most locations are fairly well received, right? I'm talking about the Klang Valley and Kuala Lumpur area. Now you really have to do a research properly before you launch. And I think our latent demand in terms of based on population growth and population coming into the workforce, the age 24, 25 upwards, I think there's probably a real demand of something like 150,000 to 180,000 units. So this will result at some point in the future, again, another pent-up demand situation. These are all the good news. I think all of you know, and this is probably some of the sales tips that you would give to your prospective client. We are still stable and safe. We now talk about Singapore and Hong Kong been flip-flocking. This is about 2 months ago, I went to Singapore and had dinner with my counterpart, REHDA, and there was a lot of doom and gloom because they just imposed the 10% additional stamp duty requirement for foreign buyers of their property. It's scaled down, I think, for people, even permanent residents buying second property. I think there's 5 or 3% stamp duty. And even for the locals then, if you're buying a third property, there's also additional stamp duty. That's over and above the previous legislations, I think some 20 months ago, where sellers also have to pay a stamp duty. So they're actually really forcing a, I'm not sure whether it's a soft landing, but probably more a hard landing. We saw Hong Kong doing that also, probably about 2 years ago, trying to engineer some form of soft landing. We hope, after many years of engaging with government, telling them, please do not flip-flop. This will not be, this disease will not infect the Malaysian market. And if there's anything good about government is that our cabinet, our government always engages us, listens to us, but like the wife, they don't necessarily make the same decisions as what we want. Financing facilities like EPF account 2, still there, liquidity in the market, restriction of flow of hot money, and BNM to ensure that demand is real and genuine. Government facing pressure to build low-cost, affordable houses. More state governments open to contribution in lieu of low-cost requirement, although it can be further improved. But Mandu Property Lab initiatives to improve ease of doing business. So some of these are the trends adopted by government. Land getting more scarce, success of new upcoming areas dependent on ETP rollout. Planning, construction, banking regulations getting tougher, costs also mounting. House buyers are more choosy and limited in cash and credit resources. Building in Malaysia is still attractive due to local demand. Venturing out is an option. Developers' perspective, we do a 6-monthly survey. So perhaps this might give you a slight indication of what 2012 will look like. What our members are telling us, based on transaction in 2011, the second half of 2011, is that 52% are optimistic for the year 2012. 74% of them say that price would increase in 2012. There's probably no prices for guessing that one. 80% felt that the new requirement of 5% deposit of development cost for the application will cause severe problem. It is not 5%, but actually it's 3%. I think there's probably a typo error there. I can probably summarize the challenges faced by developer and by deduction, the challenges in 2012 by the 6M. One is the method. Approval process and inconsistent policies is still a problem for our members. Approvals by state government varies from state to state and even from council to council. Some of you may know if you develop in Shah Alam, of course, over and above the 30% low cost requirement, sometimes they relax it to 20% low cost, 20% low medium, and 10% medium cost. There is an imposition of 70% Bumiputera allocation at a discount, minimum discount 7%. In the case of members in Malacca, they are imposed 60% Bumiputera quota at a minimum discount of 12.5%. And there's no automatic release mechanism. And that, again, is over and above the low-cost requirement. Johor is also very tight and very strict. So far, Penang seems to be more relaxed about it, and so is Kelantan. Every time I talk to my Kelantan chairman, he says he's got no problem. So we are now really reviewing it. Maybe PKR and PAS pass is really not so bad. Minister is not here. Governed by more than 50 laws and regulations, delay in the approval process, which incurs extra costs, obviously. The banks lend us, as developers, at between 7 to 8%. I just mentioned a Bumiputera housing policy, low-cost housing, unattainable cross-subsidy of birth policies and demands by utility companies. Utility companies also make use of developers as, if you like, an indirect tax collecting agency. Essentially, if they pass the bill to you through your utility monthly billing, you're going to be up in crime, up in arms. However, if they impose the development, say, if you wanted a substation be provided, you pay me $500,000 contribution, we are the ones who are suffering in pain because we then add onto the cost and pass it back to the consumer. But the consumer don't know, right? So these are additional costs. In the past, again, I would say 10 years ago, when a low-cost housing unit, say, outside of Kuala Lumpur is sold for 35,000 ringgit each, it costs probably 40,000 ringgit to build that unit. That's before land cost, infrastructure and services. Today, that selling price is still 35,000 ringgit, but when you go to tender, it's 75,000 to 80,000 ringgit. We passed the 40,000 ringgit worth of subsidy too. I can tell you the developers can't absorb it because we have our KPIs, we have our shareholder and our board to report to. We will still maintain our margin. That simply means that that subsidy now on the low cost is passed on to the units that are bought by the non-low cost purchasers. You can only pass so much, right? It's like a weight on your shoulder. If it's 1 pound and 2 pound weight, you can carry it. But when you put 10 to 20 pounds on his shoulder, he's going to collapse, right? And soon people will discover. I think partly because of that realization, and government knows because they are building, Ministry of Housing is building PPR units, SPNB is building also those housing units. They know the cost of construction of those units. So perhaps maybe with Rumah Pertamaku and Prima, the government is now slowly shifting the social agenda of providing affordable, subsidized, low-cost housing from the developer to government. And this is something we want. We can do our CSR, we can do our bit, but certainly not to the extent that now we have to carry. We are also of opinion that if private sector developers are allowed to maximize profit, government would derive its income from higher taxes, and those taxes can be used to subsidize, to go and subsidize whatever housing they wish to build. More stringent laws to protect house buyers' interests, higher compliance. Buyer-oriented sales and purchase agreement is one-sided. And with the new Strata Management Act, we're going to see delivery of strata title with VP. Yesterday at an official function, we were quite, in fact, Malaysia is highly legislated, highly regulated, but it also happened to be a fairly well-structured and organized industry. Yesterday at a convention, at another seminar somewhere else, I was late, but some of the attendants told me that in Hong Kong, because the speaker from Hong Kong says that over there is free for all. It's totally liberated market. So when there was such a high demand from the Chinese mainland, they were selling apartments on floor 68, floor number 8, floor 18, floor 58, floor 68. The guy, Chinese, who signs this agreement, floor 18, comes to Hong Kong to take delivery and realizes only on the first floor. And above him is actually floor 28. And above floor 28 is floor 38. So they don't have any regulation. Whereas if you are, say, in KL, even the name of the apartment block, you need to go through an approval. Even the numbering system, so assuming you have 8 units, right, and you start from clockwise, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, you have to go there. There's no way you can't put 1, 2, 3, 3A, 4, and 5, 6, 7, 8, and what have you. All right? It is regulated. It goes to that extent. So it's a double-edged sword. It's good, I think, in terms of protecting a buyer's interest, but it is also bad because it just takes time, just to get naming rights and get your floor plan numbering system. All right? This is coming in 2015. Government proposal to increase deposit from 200,000 ringgit to 3% of gross development cost without land. Existing act and legislation already regulative and prescriptive. Stricter monitoring and enforcement through submission of Form 7F. Impact of build and sell. I think this is for you to read. But in a nutshell, we think if it's going to be built and sell, in other words, instead of the buyers funding the cost of your construction, you're going to the bank now to borrow 100% of the construction cost. If you're a banker, number one, you're looking at a single customer risk, all right, with no certainty of sale. There's one way you can get around it, and that is you're now going to ask the developer and say, can you give me 70% of pre-signed sales and purchase agreement? Malaysia, if you are talking about 20 units, not a problem because 70% of those can be your friends, right? And they all can be the same name but different IC number also. But when it's 400 units and you want 300 units, it's a little bit more difficult, all right? And you will take you time to get 300 signatures on the SMP, because if they're genuine buyers, it's commitment, right? It's a specific performance. So you'll take probably 1 year, 2 years even to sign up the 300, okay? And by the time you achieve those 300, what in UK they call the sunset date. If you achieve those 300 within the sunset date, the government then says, yes, I'll lend you the 100%. And you build, take you say a high rise, 3 years to complete. And in fact now the higher rise can actually get 42 months completion period from KPKT. So it takes you 42 months plus 24, it'll be 66 months to deliver that building. So think about the amount of supply that's likely to come into the market. Think about the interest cost that developers now have to pay the developer at 7 to 8%. That's all going to add into the cost of sale. Think also about if there's a collapse of property price at that time, which is unlikely, that the 300 of these people will probably emigrated to Macau, China, Indonesia also. So you're still left with a problem, okay? So we think the shrinkage, what we're really trying to say at the end of the day is we think the shrinkage of supply into the market is going to be easily reduced by 50%. So from 110,000 units now, or 120,000, 150,000, it's going to be something like 75,000 units. And in the meantime, more youths are coming into the job market. So you're going to have a demand and supply situation which is not in equilibrium, and that's going to force prices up. We have a very successful sell and build policy for the last 30, 40 years. It has been very successful in providing affordable housing to the nation. I think it is dangerous to just move and legislate to only a single way of delivery system. Okay, I hope you will appreciate that. I hope also when you engage and talk to the public, talk to the government, they understand the impact. Because if I have 50% less delivery, it's going to be 50% less work for everyone, including possibly estate agents too. I have mentioned to my counterpart in in PAM, in IEM, and say, you're not sitting too pretty there too if I tell you that there's going to be 50% reduction in work because your fee income is going to drop. Guacera tiles or amethyst shanks or Monia roof, it has to now recalculate what's the cost of production, because again, the demand is going to be 50% down, okay? So I think the impact is far greater than just ensuring zero abandonment. Sure, there's going to be some abandonment, and we say we are like any other SMEs, we're like any other business, someone who opens a restaurant, someone who starts a manufacturing business, someone who starts a trading business. We are also susceptible to economic cycles. Greece is affected, US is affected, so why developers, who's doing a pretty good job, have to follow even the E&E industry of zero tolerance. Okay, let's run very quickly why the damages that just a single system of delivery, BTS, will impact the industry. Higher cost of borrowing, higher holding costs, negative cash flow. We then now will not be able to inbuild a lot of infrastructure and social facilities which we have always done in the past. The banks are going to lend you the money, is going to say, hang on, that's not part of the project. So why are you building a community center? Or why are you building a bridge down the line? Okay, and why are you building low-cost houses? Nothing to do with the project. So we can see all these problems coming through. Material increase, I think, again, I think in your pack you will find the cost of input costs of construction going up. That will obviously be a pass-through cost. The market, government legislation that can influence prices of real estate. RPGT, I think the minister mentioned about it. I think it's quite mild. We didn't mind it, except if we say, again, don't keep flip-flopping on RPGT. Stamp duty waivers for all those values which are lower. I think it's for Malaysia, Rumah Pertamaku, they get stamp waiver. Loan restriction, this is talking about the third unit, where you need to put 30% of your money before banks are allowed to lend to you. We have to take note of the profile of younger population. You can see lately deliveries of studio units and one-bedroom units flying off the shelf, partly because of affordability, but partly because the younger generation don't want to stay with parents, quite happy with smaller units. This is what I call independence. Affordability gap, high cost of translator, higher house prices, and widening the affordability gap. This is one of the thrusts of the ETP to move the per capita income up. Money, of course, is a cost. At the moment, interest rate is very favorable. But again, as normalization begins, I'm not sure, maybe 2 or 3 years from now, we can anticipate that going up again. Machinery, one of the thrusts of government to reduce reliance on foreign labor is reduce foreign labor, but I think that's only possible if there's incentive and also tax exemption for the machineries that are necessary for enabling IBS. Manpower, shortage of skilled labor. We are still very highly dependent on foreign labor. We need to upskill our workforce, and CIDB would need to come in actively to participate. It is again worrying what the Deputy Minister say about productivity. We need to increase that too. Developers' opportunity. I think as a consequence of all these challenges, members are now looking at diversification of risk and diversification of its business portfolio. So just going on greenfield alone, which is in scarcity of supply, is not good enough. So as a result, you see developers going into urban redevelopment. And you can see Sungai Embassy Air Base, you can see Pudu Jail, of course, Kampung Baru, if you can get the political issues sorted out. So these are the new areas that developers are looking at very actively going forward. You can even see retrofitting and renovation of buildings to ensure more supply. Greenfield development, remaining large pieces, rubber research land in Sungai Buloh, Iskandar development. There will be a lot more development rights given for on spots where the 31 MRT stations would be. So in terms of supply, once that gets going, there'll be a lot more supply coming to the market. Hopefully that will mitigate some of the price increases arising from the shortage of supply in the last 2 years, going forward next 2, 3, 4 years. Hopefully that supply will ensure that prices do not escalate too much. We have also developers now looking very actively overseas. Not the easiest hunting ground, but I think diversification of risk based on strong balance sheet, it is worthwhile. So we have people going to China, Australia, Singapore, India, Vietnam. This is where I think 2012 is going, and we are receiving quite a lot of foreign delegation trying to sell deals to our members. Partly because there's no funding in places like the UK and in Europe. So it is an opportunistic chance for developers. Well, that's my last slide, 2 minutes before finishing, but just before I end, again, I want to thank MIA for inviting me onto the stage to speak. I also want to once again congratulate the members of MIA for doing a great job. I think when President Obama or President Nixon was standing here talking about embracing change, it sounds like the speech that Obama spoke. But if you look at the word change, I think there's a lot that MIA members can do. You need to elevate your professionalism. Although I used to be a developer, I'm also now buying and selling my own property portfolio, and I notice the standards of conveyancing, the standards of service varies from one agent to another. I think one of the key areas that you can improve on is have some form of standardized customer experience approach, and CBD is one way. I think the Prime Minister talks about a ladder opportunity for people who are already qualified in some field, so accelerating their qualification, right? And by increasing and upskilling the training, these people can come into the market fairly quickly as real estate, realtors, professionals. I think will be a good thing for the industry. So I want to encourage you all to continue on this journey of self-improvement, and the fact that you are here spending a very valuable Saturday and a Sunday, not only in terms of time, also spending your money and listening to a first speaker like me. Fortunately, I don't like the dynamite in itself is worth praise and congratulations. So with that, salam sejahtera dan terima kasih.
Thank you.